Okay, so, tell me about your lesson today. How do you think it went?
Awesome. So the first thing we talked about was ranges of scores and how kids can be a score but still have several points in that range. So we talked about like the MEP test and how this year all the changes that are going to be made, and for example, a child who scored, I gave it a range of 0, 10, 20, 30, 40. So there was 10 points in each score. And talk to them about how you could get a 12 and have a score of 2. But you could also get a score of 19 and still just be a 2. And then I asked them, well, what would you rather be, the 12 or the 19? And they said, well, the 19. And I said, well, why? They said, because we're really close to being a 3. I said, well, how much more would you need? They said, well, we just need 1 point. So that led us to talk about how can you get 1 more point to convince the person reading your paper that you're a 3, not a 2. And they came up with things like using math words and restating the question and things like this. So then we did an FA, a formative assessment together, and I led into that by saying, now you want to be a 4. Everything you do, you want to try to be a 4. So give me everything you can to convince me that you deserve a 4 and you're not a 29 or a 19 or whatever. And like light bulbs went off all over. It was really cool.
So your kids were doing some evaluation of themselves and their peers, and they were actually forming claims and arguments.
Yeah, for sure. And after we did the question together, I had them read or show what they wrote, and then we looked at those, and if I said, well, I could only give that a 3, I'd say, well, why? And they would say, well, they said it, and that doesn't tell them what they were talking about, so they should restate their question. And those strategies kept coming, kind of cycling into everything we talked about.
So there was something deeper and more summative to this than just the surface of scoring yourself.
For sure. For sure.
Some deeper thinking.
Yeah. Not only about themselves and what they were doing, but of what they were seeing in the other pieces.
So thinking about this lesson and what you did this time, how does it compare with what you may have done in the past or what you were planning on doing? Tell me about how that was for you. How do you think this compares to what you would have done in the past?
Well, I just feel like I kept saying to them, you're not thinking, you're not thinking, you're not thinking. And I never really taught them how to think. And that was a big kind of aha for me. So for them to see that 1 point would get them a higher score, and then to talk about how do I do that, gave them some tools to do better and know that they did better. They can point to their answer and say, I've got a math word, I restated my question, I answered it completely, all these things, and now they can say, I think mine's a 3, instead of me waiting for me to say, you're a 3.
So they're thinking more critically about what they're doing because you've given them some things, but other things they're bringing to the table just from thinking deeper.
For sure.
So what do you want to stay mindful of from now on when you're working through your lessons, having this experience with this type of classroom where you have the kids? You're saying you have the kids that are actually thinking and doing the things that you used to do for them. They're now doing that for themselves. They're engaged. What do you want to be mindful of from now on?
I think most important is for me to keep restating to them that they want to try to be a 4. One of the examples I gave to them was that, like for the MEP test or what's now the M-STEP, it's not someone you know who is judging your work. I can't say, oh, well, Susie, I know her, she always forgets to do this. So when somebody, a stranger, is looking at your work, you want to be able to convince them that you have everything you need or are exceeding what you really just need to have a decent score. And so if I always approach everything to them by saying, now remember, you want to try to be a 4. You want to convince me that you have everything and you have a deep understanding of the topic. And so I think just right now, as my first step, reminding them that that's their goal. Their goal is to prove to me, or to everybody, really.
So really making it clear what the criteria are and having them come up with the argument for how they can make the claim where they're at. And be able to clearly communicate their self-evaluation of where they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and not be surprised when they get grades back. They should know where they're at. I mean, I'm feeling like they know where they're at.
What about, going back a little bit and reflecting on this lesson, was there anything that surprised you?
I didn't think that a simple using like the 12 and the 19 in that range of 2 was going to be so powerful. I mean, I thought I was just going to be talking about the new WEEP test and how that applied to what we do, and it was just kind of I didn't know that it was going to be so powerful. And when I saw the light bulbs go off and they made the connection, I was like, they got it. They get this.
So there were things that you saw in the kids, things that they said to you that made it very clear to you that they had a deeper understanding, and not just that 12 is close to, a 2 and 19 is close to a 3. They understood what that actually means, not just a number.
Mm-hmm.
It meant something more, and it was tied to criteria.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When you think about this conversation that we're having and what the kids did today in your lesson, how would you incorporate that into your own thinking?
Do you mean like for planning a lesson, or just life, or?
Maybe the process of going through this conversation right now, reflecting on what we've talked about.
I don't know, I guess right now, my brain, and I don't know if this is what you're asking, but I'm going to kind of like the big picture of life, whether it's this conversation or a job interview or a question that your math teacher is asking you. You always want to be a little bit better when you're being assessed and prove to people what you know. Or, so this idea of making things deeper and using more to prove without babbling on and on, because the kids often want to just fill up a page with stuff instead of giving you meaningful information. So I feel like, I think people in general kind of do this thing, and to teach kids how to do this thing, how to prove themselves all the time and be meaningful in what they say, is a big life lesson, not just a WOTUS math lesson.
Yeah. So being clear about what you want to say, saying it in a way that is not just understood by you, but understood by other people, so that it's more streamlined and just more true to what you're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So people really understand you and what you're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Has this conversation has helped support you in your learning, or how has it?
Right now I think I'm just excited, to be honest. This was a new thing, so, I don't know, I can't get past the fact that this just 1 to 4 range of their depth of knowledge might be the driving force in everything I do. And right now, that's just where I'm at.
So getting to those deeper concepts, those deeper that deeper line of questioning.
Yeah, and just, I don't know. I guess when I was asking before for them to think, and I didn't feel like they were, I found that they were throwing numbers at me, trying, throwing them at a wall and hoping that they stick.
Trial and error to get
and
to try to prove to you that they're thinking.
There was nothing behind it. Now, there's a lot more behind behind it. It felt that way today, that there was a lot more behind it.
Do you have any hunches about what may have caused the change? If you could say one reason why this wasn't them just trial and error throwing things at a wall that'll stick, what do you think was the driving force? What's your hunch, or do you have any hunches about what?
My hunch is that by using formative assessments in my room in the past, and them being scored 0 or 1 to 4, 1 was their low score, 4 being the highest score, and mastering something, that they already had some exposure to that,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of assessment feedback.